There is a kind of strength that does not show up on screens or statistics. It does not announce itself. It does not rush to be seen. It grows quietly, often unnoticed, while the world is looking somewhere else. This strength is built in moments that feel ordinary, repetitive, even invisible, and yet it is the kind of strength that determines whether a life endures or collapses when pressure finally arrives. Most people assume strength is something that reveals itself in dramatic moments, a bold decision, a public victory, a breakthrough that everyone can see. But long before those moments ever appear, strength is already being shaped in private, in the early mornings when discipline matters more than motivation, in the long stretches where progress feels slow and recognition is absent, in the quiet choice to keep going even when no one is cheering. We live in a time that celebrates results more than formation. We admire outcomes but rarely ask what it costs to become the kind of person who could sustain them. We praise achievement but overlook the inner life that makes achievement meaningful. And so many people feel discouraged, not because they lack ability, but because their growth does not yet have an audience. If you are in a season where your effort feels unseen, where your consistency goes unnoticed, where your discipline feels lonely, this message is for you. Because the strength you are building right now without applause, without validation, without guarantees, is the strength that will carry you when life becomes heavier than you expected. There is nothing accidental about quiet seasons. They are not delays, they are not punishments, they are not evidence that you are failing. They are formative spaces, spaces where your values are tested, where your motivations are clarified, where your character is shaped slowly enough to last. Many people mistake visibility for progress. They assume that if something is not being noticed, it must not be working. But the deepest forms of growth rarely announce themselves. They work beneath the surface, adjusting habits, refining judgment, strengthening restraint. By the time others see the result, the foundation has already been laid. This is why inner discipline matters more than external validation. External validation is unstable. It depends on trends, opinions, and comparison. It rises and falls without warning. When it becomes the source of motivation, it leaves you vulnerable to discouragement the moment attention shifts elsewhere. Inner discipline, on the other hand, is steady. It does not need permission to continue. It does not collapse when affirmation is missing. It is rooted in values rather than visibility. It asks a different question each day. Not who noticed, but did I remain faithful to what matters? Learning to govern yourself before seeking approval is one of the most difficult lessons in life. It requires patience, it requires humility, it requires a willingness to be misunderstood for a season. But without this self-governance, influence becomes dangerous, success becomes hollow, and recognition becomes a burden rather than a gift. When pressure enters your life, and it always does, the strength that carries you will not come from applause you received in the past. It will come from discipline you practiced when no one was watching, from habits that were formed quietly, from values that were protected consistently, from restraint that became second nature. Purpose plays a crucial role here. Purpose is not urgency. It does not rush you into decisions just to feel productive. Purpose creates clarity. It anchors you when comparison tries to pull you off course. It reminds you that faithfulness is more important than speed. Pressure often tells us that if we are not moving faster, we are falling behind. It tells us that everyone else is ahead, that opportunities are disappearing, that time is running out. And under this pressure, people make choices they later regret. They compromise values, they abandon disciplines, they trade depth for speed. Purpose resists this. Purpose says stay steady. Purpose says do the work in front of you well. Purpose understands that what is rushed is often fragile, but what is formed slowly is resilient. Quiet strength grows when you choose purpose over pressure again and again, when you refuse to let urgency override wisdom, when you trust that clarity matters more than immediacy, when you allow your growth to unfold at a pace that can sustain the weight of responsibility later. This kind of strength is rooted in dignity. Dignity does not depend on performance, but it does not fluctuate with success or failure. It recognizes inherent worth. It allows you to remain grounded whether you are praised or overlooked. Strength rooted in dignity does not need to announce itself.
It does not dominate conversations. It does not seek to impress. It listens carefully. It moves deliberately. It acts with restraint, and because of this it often lasts longer than louder forms of confidence. In a culture that rewards noise, quiet strength can feel risky. You may wonder if being patient means being passive, if staying disciplined means being overlooked, if humility means being forgotten, but dignity does not disappear just because it is not loud. Over time it becomes unmistakable. Motivation grounded in values rather than hype is what allows you to endure long stretches of repetition. Hype depends on excitement, it thrives on novelty, and when novelty fades so does commitment. But values remain when emotions shift. They carry you through boredom, they sustain you through delay, they anchor you when outcomes are uncertain. There will be days when you do not feel inspired, days when the work feels heavy, days when progress feels invisible. Values-based motivation does not ask whether the work feels good, it asks whether the work is good, whether it aligns with who you are becoming. This shift is subtle but powerful. It changes how you experience effort. Discipline becomes less about forcing yourself, and more about honoring your commitments. Consistency becomes less about proving something, and more about shaping something within you. Formation happens through daily, unseen discipline, not in grand gestures but in small repeated choices. Choosing to practice when improvement is slow, choosing to learn when feedback is scarce, choosing restraint when shortcuts are tempting. These small choices rarely feel significant in the moment, but over time they accumulate, they shape reflexes, they influence judgment, they build capacity, and when opportunity finally arrives, you are not scrambling to prepare, you are ready because preparation has been happening all along. Leadership begins here. Not with authority over others, but with responsibility for your inner life, the ability to regulate emotions, the discipline to remain steady under pressure, the integrity to act consistently whether you are observed or alone. Without self-governance, influence becomes unstable, external success magnifies internal weaknesses, attention amplifies insecurity, responsibility exposes immaturity. That is why true leadership must be rooted in inner order. When you learn to govern yourself, you become trustworthy. You do not react impulsively, you do not collapse under criticism, you do not become intoxicated by praise, you remain anchored because your identity is not dependent on external response. Perseverance is often misunderstood as stubborn endurance, but true perseverance is not about ignoring reality, it is about engaging reality without abandoning purpose. It understands that obstacles are not interruptions, but instruments of refinement. Resistance strengthens discernment. Delay deepens patience. Difficulty reveals commitment. Each challenge asks a quiet question. Will you allow this to shape you, or will you allow it to harden you? When perseverance is viewed as refinement, suffering becomes meaningful, not because it is enjoyable, but because it contributes to formation. It strips away illusion, it clarifies motivation, it forces you to confront who you are becoming. Faithfulness over outcomes is one of the most grounding shifts you can make. Outcomes are influenced by factors beyond your control, timing, circumstance, other people's decisions. Faithfulness, however, remains within your reach. Faithfulness asks whether you acted with integrity, whether you remained aligned with your values, whether you did the work entrusted to you with care. This kind of measurement stabilizes you. It prevents arrogance in success and despair in delay. When faithfulness becomes the measure, you are free to work deeply without obsessing over visibility. You are free to grow without rushing. You are free to remain steady, even when results are slow. Becoming matters more than achieving. Achievements are milestones. Becoming is a trajectory. Achievements can be lost. Becoming shapes everything that follows. Who you are becoming determines how you handle success, failure, recognition, and obscurity. It determines whether you grow more humble or more brittle, more generous or more guarded, more grounded or more anxious. When becoming is prioritized, life gains coherence, work becomes formative rather than performative, success becomes stewardship rather than validation, failure becomes instruction rather than identity. Hope, in this context, is not illusion. It does not deny difficulty. It does not promise quick resolutions. It is steady and honest. It acknowledges uncertainty while remaining anchored in meaning. This kind of hope allows you to keep moving without demanding guarantees. It allows you to remain patient without becoming passive. It allows you to trust that unseen effort is not wasted, even when outcomes are delayed. If you are listening to this and wondering whether the quiet work matters, it does. If you are questioning whether consistency without recognition is worthwhile, it is. If you are tempted to rush, to compare, to abandon the slow path, pause. The strength you are building right now through restraint, discipline, patience, and integrity is shaping a life that can endure pressure when it arrives. It is preparing you to carry responsibility without losing yourself. Do not rush what is meant to be formed slowly. Do not measure your worth by what others can see. Do not confuse silence with stagnation. Keep showing up. Keep governing your inner life. Keep choosing purpose over pressure. Keep practicing faithfulness in the unseen places. Because when the moment comes, when the weight increases, when the spotlight appears, when responsibility expands, the strength that carries you forward will not be something you borrow. It will be something you built quietly, patiently, when no one was watching, and that strength will last.